Welcome back, everyone, to episode 143 of the Guardian Project podcast. I'm your host, Andy, and you don't know what resides in the dark depths of my brain.
Oh, maybe you want to be an actor someday. And
It's a 2020 horror.
oh, well, that's
what resides in my dark depths.
You've really been delving on it for at least 2 years now. That's why it's a 2020 horror.
At least.
And I'm your host, Mike. And the other day, I stole a computer repairman's Baby Ruth candy bar. Ever since, I've been on the run from this ruthless technomancer.
That was quite the lead up. You shouldn't steal from people.
No, that's true. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't be a thief.
Please listen carefully.
And this is the podcast where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering.
But mostly Commander.
So if you are listening to this, you have probably seen some updates. We are recording in the future, but there is a secret layer that is out for purchase until March 18th, the February 2022 Superdrop. So this has a lot of really cool stuff in it. Some stuff we didn't see. We've got another crossover here. What do you think of this secret layer crossover with Street Fighter?
I grew up playing Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Super Nintendo, and I was ecstatic to see not only the fact that something from my childhood is getting printed into cardboard, but at the same time, these cards are actually pretty good. And
they're pretty cool. I didn't really play. I don't think I played Street Fighter alone, but I played a lot of those games like Street Fighter versus Capcom.
Oh yeah,
I did a lot of those, and but I think I played a lot of. I probably played a lot of the Capcom characters.
Sure.
Looking at this now, just thinking about it, but they also had those. Oh gosh, those games. It's gonna date me, I guess. But remember that game like Bubble Bobble?
Oh yeah,
something like that. It was like that version of a game, but like it was like branded with like Street Fighter or Capcom character. I remember playing one of those like arcade games that had Street Fighter characters in it. I don't remember what it is, but that's my experience with Street Fighter.
I believe Street Fighter does actually have a Bubble Bobble. Like I think it's the same exact theme.
I remember playing that a lot.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I only played the fighter version of the game, and the turbo version actually just made everything go a little bit faster. So the fights didn't take forever because there was a lot of latency on old consoles and everything back then. So this is really cool. I like seeing the car in Honda Sumo Champions artwork, and that's like one of the mini games you played between the fights and everything. It's just so cool to see all that. And, reuse activatable ability being the untap, which is an homage to his Hadouken, like how you actually do the move. It's awesome.
Yeah, these cards are really cool. So we're going to see these. I wonder what that secret card will be. Some people, I didn't get a Kami. I don't think that it has been previewed yet. We've seen some, I'm not sure if it's been officially previewed or not, but looking forward to see what might be inserted in that. We are also getting it's called Lil Walkers. So they are little chibi artworks of Tamio the Moon Sage, a Johnny Mentor of Heroes, Angrat the Flame Chained, Ashiok Dreamrender, and Soren Grim Nemesis. I think these are adorable. I run these in my Planeswalker decks. It reminds me, it's very reminiscent of our logo because we've got very chibi characters of Voral and Roel-esque, so it's very on brand. And also, if you didn't notice, this Tamio has a little baby Emrakul in the background behind the moon.
Yeah, I didn't notice that at first until you pointed it out. Very, very cute.
It's the most adorable thing. So we also have a package called Introducing Kaito Suzuki. So this includes a Brain Freeze, Bribery, Snap, Unmask, and Shadow of Doubt, all with Kaito in the artwork. So this one is very, very cool. We have a special guest, Yuko Shimizu. This includes a Hikori, Dustdrinker, Kira, Great Glass Spinner, Eidolon of the Great Revel, and Elvish Spirit Guide. So some cards that aren't fun to play against, I guess. Hikori, great. Kira, protect your stuff.
Sure.
Eidolon, you're going to take some damage. It's some cool stuff.
Elvish Spirit Guide, just the Simian ape, but in green. Actually, the original one, because I think Simian was printed after Elvish Spirit Guide.
I'm not sure, but if you want some free mana in green, I guess take more this way. Now one where I think that we're winners, so we're gonna tip our hats to this or toot our own horns. There is a showcase Neon Dynasty that includes some cards in that really awesome neon artwork. There's a Ghostly Prison, a Freed from the Real, Beseju Who Shelters All, and Hall of the Bandit Lords. So what we wanted was a secret lair that had some of these old legendary lands. Beseju, Hall of the Bandit Lord. Now we don't have Obero in this. We don't have a Mikakoro.
Mm-hmm.
This is a half win. I think we half win.
Now on the board, like we had put it on the board before, we can take half of it off the board now. Maybe there'll be another secret lair later on to finish them off. Or we were talking a little bit before, a lot of these come with a bonus card. So maybe the bonus card will be one of those lands, which would be cool.
Yeah, this would be very cool. We have another land set. This is an 80s inspired synthwave package here, which includes a plains, island, swamp, mountain, and a forest in really awesome, honestly, really awesome artwork. If you are into this theme, we have pictures of the floating world, which is actually some of our hideaway lands.
Yes.
So the lands where you reveal, you're gonna reveal 4 cards, put 1 under it, and then you can activate it when you've achieved whatever it is. So like for the green one, you have to have 10 power on the board.
I believe it's 10 power. Yep.
I've only ever seen the green one. It's the only one that I know what it does.
I know the red one flips when you do, I think 8 damage to players. Shelldock Isle cares about how many cards you have in your graveyard. I have absolutely no... Oh, no, the white one triggers...
Is white attacking with 3 creatures?
Yes, yeah, so...
and Howltooth Hollow, which is
I have
the
no
black
idea.
one.
No clue.
I don't know what it does.
Mm-mm.
I don't know what it does. And then finally, we have Kamagawa the Manga, the cards, which includes an Idyllic Tutor, Swords to Plowshares, Solve the Equation, Praetor's Grasp, and Veil of Summer, with some really, really great artwork from the set. Veil of Summer has a really awesome cameo with the scrolls and everything. So again, these are on sale until March 18th, so go check them out if you want some. Very great cards.
Yeah, very cool. Also, we want to say thank you to one of our brand new patrons, Peter Carter. So thank you so much for becoming a patron. Your portion of the project is due 3 weeks from now on the nose. And you just have to be well versed enough in the presentation to actually present it to the rest of the class. You don't actually have to do any of the work, but you will be talking the whole time.
Yeah, we don't really want to come on that day.
No, that's all you.
We'll do the work, but you can present it.
Yeah, where are your other 2 people in your group? Oh, they're sick. They're at home. They can't make it.
What an awful project group. If that was the project, you do nothing but you present it. I think honestly though, I would take it all day. I don't mind presenting.
Oh, yeah. I actually did take that role in a couple of my classes in college.
Exactly. Now, if you're listening and you would like to support us, you can head to patreon.com/guardianprojectpod and donate for any dollar amount. We sincerely appreciate everybody who helps keep our show going. And if you can't donate, that's okay. We love you too.
Yes, because if you can't donate, there's a bunch of other ways you can support the podcast. Whatever platform you are enjoying the podcast on now, if you subscribe, rate, review, and comment, that also really, really helps us.
It does. And if you want to find us online, you can check out our website, guardianprojectpodcast.com. We stream on Twitch. You can find our social media on Twitter and on Instagram. You can check us out on YouTube, or you can email us at guardianprojectpod@gmail.com. Check out all of our links below. Now, Mike, what are we talking about on the episode this week?
This week, we are going to talk about all about 1 mana value commanders. It's hard to say that coming from converted mana cost from CMC. So 1 mana value commanders. So there's 12 of them, and we ranked them in order of which ones we think are not the greatest, all the way to some of the most powerful creatures in our format. And we are going to run down that list.
All right. Let's 3, 2, 1 mana value commanders. So when you look on Scryfall, at the time of recording this show, you're actually going to get 13 results. You're not going to get 12, but that's because one of them is one of those original flip cards from Kamagawa, and that's actually the Ibushi Tenderfoot, which can't be your commander because it doesn't start on the legendary side of the Kenzo, the Hard-Hearted. So once you eliminate that, we're going to take this list of the 12 legendary creatures, starting with which ones we think are on the weaker side, and we're going to end with the commander that we think is pretty much leading the pack, which one we believe is the strongest based on various factors. So we're looking at the color of the card, the complexity of the card, the strategy that the deck would typically take, and whether or not the commander we think will see some additional support in the future. So, Mike, why don't you start us out with our, I guess, dead last commander in 12th place?
Well, if it weren't for the latest Neon Dynasty printing, this would be, as far as I know, the only legendary good boy that you could have as your commander, and that is Issa Maru, Hound of Konda. This is a very vanilla creature. For 1 white mana, you get a 2/2 legendary creature dog. When it was first printed, it was actually creature type Hound, but that has been updated to dog, and that's it. It's a 2/2 for 1 white mana.
Yeah. So vanilla, meaning that there's no keywords, no mechanics. There's some flavor text on it, but that's it. A 2/2 for 1 white mana. So unfortunately, until just the last couple of years, the creature type dog wasn't in existence, and it certainly wasn't supported in any way other than something that said all creatures of a type you choose, I guess, get +1/+1.
Sure.
We have plenty of cards like that, so I mean, I guess if you played those, it doesn't really scream build around me, other than it was a 1 mana dog. It was a 1 mana commander, probably one of very few in existence, right? A lot of these 1 mana commanders came after Issa Maru.
Yeah,
some of them are
sure.
very, very recent, within the last 2, many of them are within the last 2 years, actually.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely not something that people are building around or anything like that. You know, if you're going to do it, and you want to do a dog commander, Issa Maru isn't giving you anything for dogs. It's just a dog, and maybe a 2/2 for 1 is good. You know, it's a bear for 1 mana, even though it's a dog. But most people are playing this as like an equipment theme deck. I mean, mono white, if you're going to pick a theme that mono white is going to follow, it's probably going to be artifacts, equipments, or auras, and this particular one, you're probably just trying to suit up Issa Maru and get in there for commander damage as quickly as possible. I know I actually had this deck built for not very long. I originally had a SRAM Senior Edificier deck, which cares about auras, equipments, and vehicles technically, but I didn't play vehicles in it. But it's only two mana, so it's 1 more mana, and it's still a 2/2, and it gives you card draw every time you cast one of those auras or equipments. So it was just leagues better than Issa Maru. It was fine only casting it on turn 2. Main reason I even had Issa Maru built is because we were currently playing in a commander league, and they offered extra points for first blood. So I thought, sure, why not? I'll do a 1-drop and guarantee, quote unquote, guarantee first blood and make sure I get that 1 point. But yeah, the vanilla 2/2 definitely not as good of a leader of my equipment deck as SRAM Senior Artificier.
Yeah, you definitely need that card draw. Knowing that, being stuck, unfortunately, and this is, this is a little controversial, but being stuck in white is tough, right? You may not have all that card draw that everybody else gets. We're seeing in the last couple of years the catch up theme, right? Like if an opponent has more lands than you can do X, or if this happens and an opponent has more of something, you can do X. It's just, unfortunately, it's been I think it's going to continue to probably be overshadowed as we continue to get more unique or powered up creatures coming out, even just in mono white, even if they're 1 mana.
Yeah, even I mean, just to even take a step back from that, just being stuck in 1 color, even if it's white, or we're going to talk about some other one color commanders here in this list, obviously being a 1 mana value list, but just being able to splash in another color just increases your card pool by 1 million. I'm just going to throw that number out there.
It increases it by 1 million.
Whole million.
Let's take a look at another commander, also in just one color. But we're going to shift over to red. So we have placed in 11th place Zergo Bellstriker. So Zergo Bellstriker is a 2/2 orc warrior for just a single red mana. It says Zergo Bellstriker can't block creatures with power 2 or greater. So it's not so great. Sitting around. This Zergo wants to strike some bells, run out there. And it also has dash. So this one at least has a mechanic. So dash for 1 and a red. And dash says you may cast this spell for its dash cost. If you do, it gains haste, and it's returned from the battlefield to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So you can pay 2. It comes out. It gains haste. You swing with it. At the end of turn, you put it back in your hand. This card was very popular in strategies in a 1v1 format. So, in standard, I'm not sure during the Khans of Tarkir block if Zergo Bellstriker was played very often, but it's very good early on in a game. Probably not the strongest in a multiplayer format. Also in a color that is finally getting some card advantage with its own impulse draw. But a 2/2 for 1's good with an upside, and it has a mechanic. So it's a little more complex than Issa Maru, so it's above it.
Yeah, and if we talk about the decks that kind of build around this particular one, we talked about with Issa Maru being an equipment-themed deck, but Zergo, if you really play into the dash ability, you're not going to play an equipment-themed deck because it's going to get bounced to your hand, and you're going to have to re-equip everything when it comes down, unless you have something that helps you do free equips, which do exist in red, but they're more plentiful in white. You're probably not going to play that strategy, so you might want to lean more into the enter the battlefield type of triggers and just try to dash out Zergo every single time. I know, Andy, you put a note on here. It's like it's an orc warrior, which is an interesting creature type, having creature type orc. It's not well supported. It doesn't really care about creature type orc, but there is a Lord of the Rings set coming out in our future that might care a lot about orcs, that might make Zergo pretty good in the 99, but as a commander, it's very niche, and I do think that there are better mono red, even in 1-drop commanders, even for that strategy of ETB.
All right, you heard it here. When that set comes out, if Zergo spikes, it was our show.
Yeah.
It was our show.
Sorry.
We told you.
It's FOMO. Buy it now.
So when you take a look at just some average strategies for a Zergo deck, it really just looks like it's playing like a generic legendary red creature that doesn't particularly have anything on it that's supporting maybe cards that are played in it. Maybe you want to play a Torbrand, so it deals 4 damage when it swings. You could probably play it like a Zozu the Punisher deck, where you've got a bunch of cards that punish your opponents for playing lands and tapping lands.
Sure.
There just really isn't a whole lot here. Now, you could play it with cards that care about ETB effects, right? You're dashing it, so you're gonna always put it back in your hand. I mean, I guess if you're dashing it, so Impact Tremors or cards like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you care about what's the enchantment, the large enchantment that cares about the power of the creature? It's only
Warstorm Surge.
Warstorm Surge, yes. I'm not sure you want that, but maybe you do. I've never played against the Zergo Bellstriker deck, but I'm always intrigued by 1 mana value commanders. So I'm sure there's someone out there that has one of these. It's probably pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the next commander on our list actually is cheating. It's cheating to make it on this list.
It's the most technically, but not really, but still is.
Right. So we're back in mono white, and we are talking about Mikaeus the Lunarch, which can be cast for 1 white mana, but the casting cost is X with white. And Mikaeus the Lunarch enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to that X, because normally Mikaeus is only a 0/0. He is a human cleric with 2 activatable abilities of tap to put a +1/+1 counter on Mikaeus, or tap to remove a +1/+1 counter from Mikaeus to put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. So this is a mono white +1/+1 counter strategy. The wider you go, the wider you go, the better, because you're going to be able to pump everything up. And although Mikaeus can be cast for 1 white mana, he will die immediately if you do so, unless you have some sort of Anthem or Lord effect, something that will automatically give Mikaeus +1/+1, making his base power and toughness 1/1. I know Metallic Mimic is something that might be used in a Cleric tribal deck or a Human tribal deck, which you might find Mikaeus in. And what that says is you choose a creature type, and Metallic Mimic is that chosen type in addition to its other types. And whenever a creature of that type would enter the battlefield, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter. So it does enter with the counter. It doesn't get the counter afterwards. So Mikaeus would enter as a 0/0 with a +1/+1 counter and survive. These are ways that you can cast Mikaeus for 1 mana and have it survive, something you probably don't care about in your Mikaeus the Lunarch deck.
Yeah, it's a pretty complex card, right? We've got 2 mechanics here. It has X in its casting cost. It does have some upsides being a human cleric, though.
For sure.
So two tribes that get quite a bit of support. We see humans often, very, very popular. We saw a lot of cleric support in Zendikar Rising, which was not that long ago.
That's right.
I'm not sure I'd want to play this as a commander, but it'd be cool on turn 12, when you pay it for X equals 11.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess since both of its activatable abilities are tap abilities, you'd have to grant it haste to have it do something as soon as it comes on the board, which is definitely possible via equipments or some artifacts and stuff, but you don't have red there to help you with that haste ability. But I am surprised that I don't see this card more, because I don't think it's a bad commander in any way, but maybe there's just better mono white +1/+1 counters matters decks. Maybe the new Heliod from the latest Theros block or something.
Yeah, Sun Crowned, which can put counters on things but also gives things lifelink. It's kind of maybe that added upside. Now, +1/+1 counters, super supported strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the fact that this can remove a bunch of counters to put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control means that if you're just playing a bunch of cards that are going to make tokens, like if you wanted to run a Secure the Waste, which is a card that you pay X and you just make a bunch of, I believe it's just soldiers. Warriors. You make a bunch of warriors at instant speed. You can maybe make 5 or 6 warriors, and then you tap it, remove a counter from Mikaeus, and all your warriors doubled their power and toughness. And, it does become increasingly harder to beat somebody when they have 5 2/2s and then 5 3/3s and then 5 4/4s, and you're like, oh no, I am in trouble if I do not find a removal spell. And I will say, the more and more that I have been playing recently, the less board wipes I have been seeing.
Interesting. Okay.
And I don't know, and maybe it's just because we are playing the new hotness and they kind of want to just do their thing and they're not playing maybe very established decks. I mean, I've been playing a lot of new decks recently, so that could be it. But
sure,
this works really well. Unfortunately, that second one is usually in that go wide strategy,
right.
So you're wanting to put a lot of things out on a lot of stuff. I see probably more often than not Mikaeus is put into a humans deck. This is from my personal experience in the 99, and it's probably green white, or it's one of the Maru ones as a supporting character.
Definitely. Now there is one interesting tidbit here, is that there is actually an infinite combo with Mikaeus the Lunarch, and it is all in mono white. So if you had a Mikaeus the Lunarch deck, you could actually run this combo. Unfortunately, this combo by itself does not win you the game. It in fact draws you the game.
We love a good draw, though.
Right? So it includes Mikaeus the Lunarch, Luminous, Broodmoth, and Solemnity. Luminous Broodmoth cares that if something dies, if it didn't have flying, it comes back to the battlefield with a flying counter. And Solemnity is an enchantment that says players and permanents can't get counters, or counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands, as well as players. And you might think, why would I run a Solemnity in my Mikaeus deck? And I would have the exact same question for you in your Mikaeus deck. But if you want to have this infinite combo, it is technically possible to cast Mikaeus for 1 1 white mana, making him enter as a 0/0. He will die to state-based effects. Luminous Broodmoth will bring him back because he doesn't have flying. Due to Solemnity, you won't actually be able to put a flying counter on Mikaeus, and it will then die again to state-based effects. And without anything able to interrupt this combo, and with no payoff on your side of the board for this combo, the combo will repeat infinitely. Nothing will be able to progress on the board, and the game will end in a draw.
Okay, we have to digress for a second. That's almost as gross as something that you may have heard of. Now, this is completely non-Magic related, but did you hear recently in the last couple of weeks that McDonald's China, they launched a cilantro sundae?
Yes, they did.
One, cilantro is the worst. Unfortunately, my genetic makeup, it has a chemical disposition to cilantro, so I wish I enjoyed it. I just don't. But for all of you cilantro lovers that love gross things, maybe you need to check out this Luminous Broodmoth Solemnity combo. Would you actually try this? It looks like there's a green gel, honestly, in this sundae, and then a bunch of weird gritty flakes of cilantro dried on top.
Yeah, I think I would definitely try it at least once, the same way I would definitely try to draw out a game of Magic at least once.
I would try to draw it out at least once.
I don't know if I would actually enjoy it. I mean, I do like cilantro on my tacos, but I don't like eat mouthfuls of cilantro, and I definitely don't mix it with vanilla ice cream, so I'm not really sure if I'm going to end up enjoying it, but I do not have the chemical disposition towards cilantro, so it wouldn't taste like soap to me, at least.
The good news is that the Sunday machine, the soft serve, will be down. So it won't matter anyway. They'll just have cilantro ready to go when the soft serve comes back up.
Ooh, actually, if McDonald's has cilantro, then McDonald's could be starting making some tacos there. Then I would try those for sure.
Oh, don't. We got to stop venturing out into things. Taco Bell did that whole their breakfast tacos, which honestly was just wrapping. I mean, you could do that at home. You just take sausage links and wrap an Eggo waffle around it, because I feel like that's what Taco Bell did.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
thank you.
I feel like you could say that about a whole lot of fast food, though. You could do this at home. It's just a burger.
Okay, that's fair. So let's move on to number 9 on our list. So next in line, again, another mono white. I'm not surprised, though, to see a bunch of low mana value white creatures.
Right.
So it's cool to see, but this one is actually Kythian, Hero of Akros. So this is from Magic Origins, a set that super popular. People loved these Spark Planeswalkers. So these are the creatures on one side that turned into a Planeswalker on the other side, and kind of showed the story of how they their Spark ignited. So Kythian, Hero of Akros is a 2/1 human soldier for 1 white mana. It says, at the end of combat, if Kythian, Hero of Akros, and at least 2 other creatures attacked this combat, exile Kythian and return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. And it has an ability to pay 2 and a white to give Kythian indestructible until end of turn. On the backside, so this is a 2-sided card, it is Gideon Battleforged, which is a Planeswalker with 3 loyalty. It has a +2 to give up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. You must force it to attack Gideon during its controller's next turn. It has a +1 to that says until your next turn, target creature gains indestructible. Untap that creature, so you can maybe make a big blocker. And then it also has the normal Gideon, which is pay 0 until end of turn. Gideon Battleforged becomes a 4/4 human soldier with indestructible. That's still a Planeswalker. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him this turn. So
that's a lot of text for a 1 white mana value creature.
It's a lot. So this is an extremely complex card. It's a creature. It's a Planeswalker. It has an activated ability, 3 loyalty abilities, and it has basically a triggered ability of a mechanic from the Return to Ravnica block, which was Battalion. So Battalion was the Boros mechanic, and it required that you swung with 3 creatures at a time to get an additional something added.
Right.
So if you swing with 3 creatures, maybe they gain lifelink, or maybe they gain one of your creatures gains double strike or something. Something better happens when you swing with multiple. It's a double-sided card. It's not easy to learn as a new player, but it's really popular because there's just so much going on. And honestly, looking at Kithian, this reads like a card that came straight out of Strixhaven or Kaldheim.
Sure.
Like just a wall of text.
Yeah, and
on a 1 mana value creature.
Absolutely. I do like the way that people are building decks around it, because there isn't like a particular one thing. Like, you have to make it flip, so you have to put some creatures in there, but maybe you want to build around the indestructible mechanic, maybe you want to build around the planeswalker mechanic, maybe you want to build around the creature types that Kithian is, either a human or a soldier. But, you know, for the most part, it definitely wants to play every single card with Gideon in the artwork at the very, very least.
Yeah, and honestly, the artwork here is really, really good too. The card is just gorgeous. So, the issue here is the Planeswalker side, it's not particularly powerful in Commander. In a 1v1 format, again, you were able to flip this and force a creature to swing at you, which left you, I guess, your opponent open for you to swing in with a bunch of your small white creatures. This was like the most popular deck in Standard at the time. It was a deck that I played. This was at the tail end when Shadows over Innistrad was out. So this was a wildly popular card in 1v1 Standard. It's probably not the best in Commander. Cool to force someone to attack in white but at a Planeswalker, but you're gonna probably have a difficult time taking down a full pod in 4 players. If you're going with the obvious themes, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's and I think that's why people tend to play it just all planeswalkers, and so then you can, you got to pick and choose which planeswalker you're going to throw it at. I actually was trying to look to see whether or not I play this particular card in my Digiru with Eyes Open deck. I do not. And I guess I was going to ask you whether you played in your planeswalkers decks, but I imagine in most people's planeswalkers decks you don't have a high enough density of creatures to reliably flip Kithian.
I don't, and I also don't even run it as a supporting actor in my green-white humans deck, which is exactly where I'd want this to be too. Just something flavorful and cool. I don't even run it there. So this one, though, of all of the creatures on this list, this is the one that I've always wanted to build the most. I will be honest. It just seems wild. And when you're going up against someone's Kithian deck, you're like, what's it going to do? Yeah. What are they going to do? How are they going to get me?
They're probably going to swing and then activate Gideon.
Yeah,
Battleforged.
Probably. So anyway, it has a nice diversity of themes on the card, what you could do with it. But unfortunately, you're kind of stuck in mono white. You're stuck in swinging. So it ended up as number 9 on our list. But still a very complex card.
Definitely. So I got to talk about the old goodest boy in Magic, and I am lucky enough to be able to talk about the new goodest boy in Magic, and that is a Yoshimaru Ever Faithful, who lands on our number 8 spot. Yoshimaru Ever Faithful is a legendary creature dog 1/1, so not a 2/2, half the power and toughness of Isamaru, but it has the ability of whenever another legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yoshimaru Ever Faithful. So once you cast your Isamaru after Yoshimaru, they end up being the same power anyways. But the really particular line of text that sets this card apart from a lot of other of these 1 mana value commanders is this thing that says partner. You can have 2 commanders if both have partner, which really, maybe it takes away. I mean, and looking at Yoshimaru Ever Faithful as a 1/1 legendary creature in mono white that only gets +1/+1 counters whenever legendary permanents enter the battlefield doesn't seem very strong.
Sure.
But if you could, you could throw 2 other different colors into this, or maybe you're adding Yoshimaru to a 2-color partner just to add white to something, and you might adding white. What are you doing? Well, it's got some of the best removal in the game. But even if it's just legendary creatures, maybe you're playing this with Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, where you don't care about legendary creature matters rules, and you're going to do an all legendary creatures blue-white deck or something like that.
That sounds great. Blue-white sold.
Blue-white legendary creatures decks. You like that?
It's like I've liked that or something. It's a brand new card, right? So we don't have a lot of information on Yoshimaru.
Right.
We've never seen it played as a commander yet. I would assume and that it's going to be paired and played as a partner, so it gets an additional color. But for as far as our list goes, we're evaluating this based on what it can do right on its face. But we landed at number 8 because of that partner mechanic. It's until we see something, it's not going to be the highest on the list because maybe the power that it's getting, the additional oomph, is going to come from the other commander you're pairing it with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and you can even see that there are a couple infinite combos with it. None of them are in mono white. You do have to splash at least blue in order to get there. As a commander itself, sure, it's an ever increasing power and toughness, and maybe you can pump him up to 21 power easier than I can imagine. But at this point, keeping him at number 8 as is speculative. Maybe it's going to be good with another partner. I think that's where we're going to leave it.
Yeah, and it works really well with the spirit of the format. Just we play legendary permanents often. So legendary lands, legendary creatures, legendary artifacts, and just things. It'll work out. So, but number 7, let's go over to something that actually has no color at all. This is Hope of Ghirapur. So Hope of Ghirapur is a 1/1 legendary artifact creature Thopter for 1 mana. It has flying, and it has Sacrifice Hope of Ghirapur. Until your next turn, target player who was dealt combat damage by Hope of Ghirapur this turn can't cast non-creature spells. That is a pretty complex ability. On a colorless creature. It can go in any deck, or it can helm a deck that has lots of artifacts, but it also has the keyword flying, which is great. It's just an evergreen keyword of flying. Love flying, the best evasiveness. I guess unblockable until unblockable gets a keyword, right?
Sure.
We've given menace, we've given all that, but Shroud is cool. But this one here, it's a pretty complex ability because it requires timing decisions to determine when you want to maybe lock a specific opponent out of non-creature spells for one go around the table. So you're playing against 3 decks and maybe 2 of them are Spellslinger decks, and you're like, you know what? I just have a feeling that blue-red deck over there is going to do something awful when they untap, and they're tapped out right now, and now's my only chance. So I'm going to go for it. I think this leads to a lot of cool decisions. But yeah, to make sure you stay in the game.
Well, for sure. And that's maybe, I've seen some decks with Hope of Ghirapur where they try to sacrifice it as much as possible and bring it back with, Scrap Trawler or Junk Diver like effects that say, like, when an artifact goes to the
Mirror
graveyard.
Retrievers.
Exactly. When artifacts go to graveyard, you can take other artifacts from your graveyard and put them back in your hand, so then you can recast them. But the other half of the time I've seen Hope of Ghirapur, it is really built around the fact that I can get it out on turn 1. It has flying. I'm going to put as many equipment on it as possible, and I'm going to kill you with commander damage, and I don't need any of those equipments to give my Hope of Ghirapur flying or protection from creatures or anything like that. It's just going to get you.
Yeah, Commander's Plate, giving it +3/+3 and pro all colors that it's not. And because it's no colors, it's pro everything, essentially.
I'm curious if people maybe are shying away from playing Hope of Ghirapur as their 1 mana Voltron commander because the mana base is so expensive. Your basic lands cost $1 a piece, no matter what you do, because you have to play waste. This is a colorless deck completely, but at the same time, people are playing a lot of mana rocks. Some of the colorless mana rocks can be a little expensive. People might at the top end play Eldrazi, which are definitely pretty expensive. But yeah, I think, it's a colorless deck. Voltron matters for most of them. Lock out your opponents. It is, again, a very complex card.
I like that it has a lot of loops, though. It seems very combo centric, but I also like that the mana base there, I guess, could just be a bunch of lands that have special abilities on them. You've got cards like Darksteel Citadel, a Ghost Town, Rogue's Passage. Wait, another deck for Access Tunnel.
Yes,
you got it all. Inventor's Fair. Just there's a lot of cool cards you can play to this. So it lands on our list at number 7 here because it is kind of a colorless control deck, but it's complex by nature with that sacrifice ability.
Yeah, we are going back to the color red for number 6 on our list with Norin the Wary. So Norin the Wary, for 1 red, you get a 2/1 human warrior that says, when a player plays a spell or a creature attacks, remove Norin the Wary from the game. Return it to play under its own control at end of turn. So basically, if anyone does anything, Norin runs away. He's gone.
Goodbye.
He flickers until the end of, because I think, yeah, right. Flicker is until end of turn. Yeah. So he flickers every time someone does something, which is very interesting for a red creature. I kind of, picture a red creature as something that has haste and wants to attack, but this Norin almost seems like kind of a coward in a way. Anytime he hears something, he's got to run away. But it does, we alluded to a little bit before when we talked about Zergo, it does kind of go into an enter the battlefield trigger type of style, and it's in mono red, so you have those same kind of like Warstorm Surge type cards that you can play in there, and
you can throw in Pilferer, God of the the Forge. You can cards like Pandemonium. Whenever a creature comes into play, you have it deal damage to its power equal to target player. It's really such a unique mechanic, the way that it's written, for being such an old card, and maybe that's why we don't see cards like this right now.
No, definitely not. I mean, I guess we're starting to see phasing out and phasing back in again.
Yes,
and
we are seeing phasing again.
So that's kind of an old mechanic that we see, but phasing doesn't give you enter the battlefield triggers. And maybe that was their decision process. They say we're either bringing back phasing or everything's going to look like Norin the Wary. So they decided
Norin has so much text. That's so much board management. And I think that's part of the complex the complex nature of Norin is there's a lot of board management. You have to always be on. It's like, do you pay the 1 for heuristic study? You have to remember when someone does anything, because Norin's got to go.
Yeah,
and then come right back.
As a She-Ray player, it's very easy for me to remember everything comes back at the end step. So maybe Norin is my way to get into another mono red deck. I don't know if you can play it any other way other than enter the battlefield matters.
I've only ever seen it as chaos. I've played against Norin in both our Commander League. I actually got to play against Norin the Wary when I was traveling at MTG Vegas this past year. I did play 1 game against a Norin deck, and it was playing cards like Confusion in the Ranks, which is, you have to be really ready for that mindset during your pregame chat, which is part of the reason why I think Norin's hitting number 6 on our list. Confusion in the Ranks is an enchantment that says whenever an artifact, creature, or enchantment comes into play, its controller chooses target permanent another player controls that shares a type with it, and then they trade them. So you trade your Norin away for someone else's creature, and then whenever anything happens, Norin blinks away and comes back into play under your control. So you're slowly stealing everybody else's stuff. It's a crazy deck that plays cards like Warp World, and I think Norin just, I don't know how else you would want to build it.
Right. Yeah. There's not enough ETB around to actually build it completely around ETB, and chaos will be chaos. And that actually sounds like really cool strategy. I mean, we talked at the very, very beginning of this episode that stealing is wrong, but in Magic the Gathering and Commander, it's okay to do it. So go ahead and do it.
It is. And I like that it's really unique. So ending at number 6 is where Norin lives. Now, number 5, let's shift over to green. So this is Oviya Peshiri, Sage Lifecrafter, a 1/2 human artificer for a single green mana that has 2 activated abilities. Pay 2 and a green, tap her to create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token, and then pay 4 and a green and tap her to create an XX colorless construct artifact creature token where X is the number of creatures you control. So the more creatures you have, the stronger the construct is going to be. It's interesting seeing a green deck making artifacts, but very cool. But it's a token strategy, 2 mechanics, and green is just such a powerful color in Commander that you're going to ramp out, and Oviya is probably going to do quite a bit of work, even on a nice budget, which is why this is landing here at number 5.
Yeah, I mean, I see this played not so much actually with like token strategies. I see this kind of more in the realm of budget. strategies when you want to make a budget green deck or something, and you can't afford your doubling seasons and your parallel lives to double all of your token creation and stuff, and maybe you're just banking on being able to activate Oviya for the 5 mana ability to create a big thing because you cast a bunch of creatures, because it doesn't matter if they're the 1/1 servos or creatures that you cast during the thing. So I see this helming a lot of mono green good stuff decks. If you can produce a lot of mana, it's nice to actually have a nice mana sink for Oviya. I know Oviya was my mono green good stuff green commander at the very, very beginning when I first started playing Commander. As soon as we found out that Badoka Gardener is not a legal commander.
Oh yeah, you played that for a couple of months and we were like, oh wait, we don't know how this game works.
yeah, that was definitely before we had a podcast, and I thought Badoka Gardener could be my commander, much like Bushi Tenderfoot that we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Although it is a legendary creature after it flips, since it starts as not a legendary creature, you can't use it as your commander. So Oviya became my commander, and I think she did pretty well.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to see support for tokens. We're going to see cards that double the tokens that you have, Harvest Season, Doubling Season, Parallel Lives. Cards like that are very popular. We're going to continue to see artifact support. Servos are very popular. Construct tokens, very popular.
Yeah, you can even have treasure tokens in with your old Gnawbone in mono green as well. So there's definitely going to be even artifact support in mono green going into the future, which is exciting.
Right.
So we are finally going to get to a 2-color commander here at our number 4 slot. And the 2 colors is really a big reason of why it's so high on this list. It's a relatively recent card from Modern Horizons 2. It is Zabaz the Glimmer Wasp for 1 generic mana. So although the creature itself is colorless, it does have a different color identity. For 1 generic mana, you get a 0/0 artifact creature insect with modular 1. And what that means is it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it, or a +1/+1 counter for each number after modular. So we have modular 2, modular 3. But if a modular triggered ability would put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. So when a modular creature dies, you could put its +1/+1 counters on another modular creature. That's the second half of the modular keyword. It also has 2 activatable abilities. For 1 red, you can destroy target artifact you control. Maybe it's a creature with modular. And for 1 white, you can have Zabaz the Glimmer Wasp gain flying until end of turn, so some built-in evasion. Probably would have been too strong if you just put flying as an evergreen keyword on this card, but additionally, it by making it a white activatable ability, you're including a second color into the color identity. So you're in Boros in red and white in an artifacts matter themed, particularly modular matters, but red white artifacts matters is not something we haven't seen before many times.
Yeah, we've seen red cards like Duretti Scrap Savant that cares about it from a Planeswalker perspective. Teshar, Ancestors Apostle, really cares about it. And honestly, with the fact that this is 2 colors, it's higher on the list, you have access to a much larger card pool. But it's really neat with artifacts that can reduce the cost of other artifacts, because you could make this commander cost 0 mana if you play something that says artifact spells cost 1 less.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And that way you can even, his red activatable ability of destroy target artifact you control does not say other than Zabaz, so you can have Zabaz start killing itself to pump up some of your other creatures, or go for some sort of storm win by casting it over and over from your command zone or from your graveyard, maybe even. But just a very well supported theme with a 1 mana value commander. Maybe it's even good for Voltron capabilities.
It could be, and with the fact that it has 2 activated abilities makes it a bit more complex. It has a keyword that is very complex, and then it has a wall of text that is putting additional +1/+1 counters on modular creatures. So there are some loops that you can play with it, and we did talk a lot about this when we did our Modern Horizons 2 episode, and I've only played against the Zabaz deck 1 time. I don't believe that you said when we were writing all of our notes for our show this week, you've never seen even a Zabaz in the wild yet.
No, not even in the 99, which I'm sure someone in our Discord that has a modular Marchesa deck may have put Zabaz in there, and I just have to play against that deck one more time.
But this has white, so it'd have to be Mardu Marchesa. It can't even be it can't. Doesn't work in that Grixis Marchesa.
Then I'm going to continue to not see Zabaz in the wild, which wasps in the wild scare me anyway, so we'll just leave
no one, we're not here for wasps. So let's move on to number 3 on our list, which is our first commander in the color identity of black. This is Valentin, Dean of the Vein. So it's actually another 2-color identity commander in black and green. So Valentin is from Strixhaven. It is a 1-mana legendary creature, vampire, warlock, a single black mana. It has menace, lifelink, and it says if a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, you can pay 2, just 2 generic mana. If you do, you can make a 1/1 black and green pest creature token that has, when this creature dies, you gain 1 life. But there's also a second side. So this is also a 2-sided card, which makes it very complex here. You can play it as a 4/4 human druid for 2 and a green, and you'll get Lisette, Dean of the Root. So this commander says whenever you gain life, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. So this might not be a very popular commander, but it makes number 3 on our list because there's just a wall of text. On one side, it has 2 keywords and an ability that really it hates on creature strategies, just inherently.
On graveyard strategies.
On graveyard strategies, correct. So, I mean, I guess if you're playing creature strategies, what I meant was if they die, which
I gotcha.
in black and green, you're probably going to remove them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to bring them back, even if you're not playing Reanimator, still kind of hating on it because you can't. Someone else's wheel or whatever isn't even going to shuffle them back in. And it also has a life gain strategy on the other side. So being 2 colors, having access to green and black, very powerful in Commander. Graveyard Hate can be played as life gain if you wanted to on the other side. I like this commander. I play it in the 99 of some decks. I don't play it as the commander, but I think it's good as the commander still.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like the theme that the deck is playing just seems it seems like there's just a little bit too much going on, and maybe that's why we haven't seen it immediately out of the gate. I know it's a relatively new coming from Strixhaven, but the one side just being Graveyard Hate and token creation with a little bit of life gain, and the other side being, because of life gain, pumping up a whole crowd of creatures and trampling over stuff. Maybe it's too broad of a concept, but at the same time, you could play like anything I want to do with my mono black creature, but now I can add a little bit of green. It's something that I always love doing. And on top of it, those 2 keywords of menace and lifelink are 2 very particularly good keywords for an instant called Hatred, which is a 5-mana instant that says pay X life, target creature gets +X+O until end of turn, because that allows you to pay 20 life, bring Valentin up to 21 power after someone only has 1 blocker, the menace gets around it, and that lifelink is going to gain you that life right back, and you'll be right back where you started, but with 1 less opponent.
Exactly.
It's pretty nice, but not as nice, in my opinion, as a certain 1-mana monkey that we got from Modern Horizons 2 that is number 2 on our list, and that is Ragavan Nimble Pilferer. So again, for 1 red, you get a 2/1 monkey pirate that says whenever Ragavan Nimble Pilferer deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card, and it also has this ability that we saw on Zergo Bellstriker of dash for 1 and a red. You can have it come out with haste and it returns back to your hand at your end step. This card is pretty nuts, I think, because it's a 1-mana cast, and then you're quote unquote automatically ramping, unless everyone's playing 1-mana value commanders or creatures, automatically ramping, and you get to play your opponent's cards. There is a little bit of a downside that's it doesn't have that text of you can spend mana as though or mana of any type to cast those cards, but since you're creating treasure tokens with Ragavan and the treasures can be cracked for any color of mana, that kind of helps you in that strategy. But early game, I think Ragavan is just so good.
So good early on. Now, funny thing is, we've got a 2-1 here, and that commander that we talked about earlier, all the way back in 11th place, Zergo Bellstriker, we thought was the best mono red commander with dash, but it has the same dash mechanic as Ragavan, making it just not as good. Yeah, I just feel so bad.
Where Zergo can't block creatures with power 2 or greater, Ragavan says you get free card advantage and free mana.
But instead, it makes up for that 1 toughness with a 2 toughness. Uh-oh.
It's worth
Doesn't
it. It's
probably matter.
Cards are balanced, I promise.
They're definitely equal. You know what's funny? I opened up a Ragavan actually in foil, and the best part of Commander is the fact that we only need 1.
That's true.
So I opened up exactly what I wanted here. I think this card is just so strong. I wasn't sure if I would like it as a commander. I have it in the 99 of a deck. I only have 1. It's in my Pirates deck. And it did the thing. It made a couple of treasures, and I got to cast a couple of cards from somebody's deck one time. And it worked really well because I had all the other treasures. As a commander, the only downside that I will say is this seems really great early game, but late game, this does require that you actually deal combat damage to a player to create that treasure token and to exile the top card of that player's library. However, with an access tunnel or a rogue's passage, you can get in, or if you just keep removing all their creatures, because you are in red, you have removal. You have spells that can remove creatures depending on how you build it. You could probably just continue going. But all you have to do is get out on that one player that's got that one player is me, and I have an expropriate on top of my library, and you're going to cast it.
Yeah, and
it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, I don't know if you're ever gonna unless someone vamp tutored for something on top of their deck or something. You're never really probably gonna want to spend the mana into an access tunnel or rogue's passage to get it unblocked. But I think removal. I think what you said is right around. Even like a coercive recruiter cares about pirates entering the battlefield in order to steal your opponent's creature. And Ragavan being a pirate, maybe there's something late game you could do with the coercive recruiter and the dash ability and constantly be stealing people's blockers away so you can get into them. But I think Ragavan's floor is okay and Ragavan's ceiling is insane.
Exactly.
Because what's on top of your opponent's deck? Now,
my deck is as good as yours. I can do anything better than you. Maybe.
Now, Andy, please round us out. We're our number 1 on the list.
Number 1. So arguably, this one, it could be at contention with Ragavan, but this one, it kind of does everything that you really want to be doing in Commander, and has been very good in our pods with our friends, in pods I've played against it. And this commander is Rhys the Redeemed. So a 1/1 elf warrior for a hybrid green-white. So we are in 2 colors here. It has 2 abilities. Pay 2 and a hybrid green-white. Tap it to make a 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature token. Or pay 4 and then 2 hybrid green-white. So 6 mana total to tap it. And it says for each creature token you control, create a token that's a copy of that creature. So this is by far here the most popular commander of these that we have seen. We have played. Mike used to have one of these decks and it destroyed us. Elves, tokens, warriors, all very well supported. This gets support almost every single set. Elves are wildly popular. We will continue to see this. The go wide strategy, making a bunch of creature tokens, is also really, really strong in Commander. It can also go tall if you make one creature very, very large, like a Desolation Twin or an Idol of Oblivion, Phyrexian Rebirth, tokens, whatever it is that you're looking to do here. It does so much in green-white, and green is just so strong in Commander, and white is the removal. You've got it all.
Yeah, I know there's sometimes an argument about like what 2-color combination, if you're going to pick one, is better for elves, if it's green-white or green-black. I think you have better elf support in green-black, but way better token support, which Rhys's second ability really cares about the most. It doesn't care if the tokens are elves. It's just any token. So like you
Any
said,
token.
the Desolation twin token of a 10/10. Yeah, let's double our 10/10s. That sounds like a fantastic idea. But also there's some strategies where having a bunch of tokens enter at the same time, even with like a Seedborn Muse being able to untap Rhys every turn and being able to do it every single turn. You get a Cather's Crusade out there that puts +1/+1 counters on all of your creatures every time another creature enters the battlefield. So you double your creatures to 6, and then you get to put 6 +1/+1 counters on everything. I played Aura Shards in mine, which against an artifacts deck is just game over. 3 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. So so much board wipe potential by creating creatures, and really the only thing you have to worry about for Rhys is what are you going to do on turn 2? Because everything else is very spelled out for you. You will be able to curve out into amazing turn 3 making elves.
You're going to Rampant Growth or Arcane Signet, maybe? Who knows?
I like Cryptolith Rite personally at 2.
Cryptolith Rite is really good on 2.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's an enchantment that says your creatures can all tap for mana.
An artifact,
tap them
I believe. No, it is an enchantment.
No, it's an enchantment.
You're right.
It's an enchantment for 2. Yeah, you can do that. You can... Anointed Procession, making double of your tokens. Parallelize, double your tokens. I mean, it's very, very strong as Elf Tribal. It's very, very strong as just generic tokens. It's clearly number 1 on our list, and very, very good. Now, yours was a smidge aggressive for our play group, and you're not playing it anymore.
That's right. So mine was an elf deck. It did play around Rhys's abilities a little bit. It played all the token doublers. It was a very expensive deck in today's world. Back then, it was still probably pretty expensive, but not as expensive as it is today. It is nice that we did see Rhys get reprinted in Double Masters, because before that, it was like a $20+ card. So now it's more accessible. You could probably pick one up for under $5 at this point and go terrorize your play groups with a green-white elf deck or a tokens deck.
Exactly. So taking a look at this list, we had 1 colorless creature. We had 5 creatures here that had white in their color identity, which I think makes sense, right? For mono white, them being low there. 1 had black in the color identity. 3 of them had red, and 3 of them had green. Sorry, blue. And I'm actually not surprised we didn't see a legendary creature that's just like a single blue mana. It kind of just makes sense.
You think we eventually will?
I don't know. The closest, I mean, we've got Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which was only 2 mana. I mean, that was very close to being 1. I don't know. Fibblethip only costs 2 as well. I don't know if we will. Blue isn't really known for its creatures early. Like they're known for like the things on them.
Yeah, so. I think like the 1-drops I see in blue, I guess, are probably like a 1/1 bird flyer or something. But red does have a 0 cost commander in there, so I guess it's not out of the question. To maybe they'll put a big downside on a blue creature and make it only cost 1 mana. It's like artifact spells you cast cost 2 more to cast, and that's all it says. But it's like a 3/3 with flying for 1. Who knows?
Yeah, and then 3 of these commanders were in 2 colors, and that's why, some of them got bumped up the list. Having some of those extra colors in their color identity, which opened them up to a larger card pool, certainly moved them on our list. And we're interested to see what you all think. Did we do this list justice? Do you think that we had all the commanders in the right place? So message us or tweet at us, reach out to us in Discord. We want to hear what you have to say. This was a lot of fun looking at 1 mana value commanders. Now, that's going to be it for this week. And if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Andy Flory.
And you can find me on Twitter at WormCoilEngine. Of course, want to give a special thanks to Ryan Nichols, our producer and editor. Thank you so much for everything that you do for us. And Chris Wolf, who handles all of our graphic design. Check out his thumbnails for all of our Commander gameplay on our YouTube video. Thank you so much for everything that you do, Chris. And to all of you listeners out there, we will talk to you next week.